What's up, guys? Back with another Smite Meta update. It's been a while. To give it a brief explanation, the changes to Smite, including the balance patches, the mid-season patch, all that stuff, came out at really weird times. Then a bunch of items were removed, and by a bunch, I mean Bauble was removed, which I thought was going to be really meta-changing. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be added back. And then it took a week for the bonus balance to come out, or 2 weeks for the bonus balance to come out. And I pretty much just said, screw it, I'm going to wait until everything's settled. And that's why we're here now. But we're here now, and let's go over this. One thing I want to talk about is heralding the return of the trifecta, the Hunter trifecta. Let me tell you a story. A long time ago, back in the depths of Season 1, I think? I don't remember. Shiva was de facto top hunter in the game. He had insane damage. His ultimate was a blind with a stun on the end of it. He was crazy, right? To answer that, Cupid came up. Cupid bodied Shiva in the matchup in the 1v1. Cupid would CC him out, prevent him from dashing, and just straight up kill him, beat him in the 1v1. To answer Cupid, Artemis came up. Because Artemis at the time did not have slow immunity on her 2, but had her ultimate, which gave her CC immunity, and she would just beat Cupid's ass. Shiva would beat Artemis's ass. Cupid would beat X-Ball's ass. Cupid's ass would be beat by Artemis. So, but right now, Cupid's really, really strong. The level of aggression he can get with his ultimate, forcing relics on cooldown. He's always been able to do this, and he does it whenever he's in the meta. He forces ADC relics on cooldown, which results in ADCs needing to pick CC immune ultimates. Cupid is strong and has a lot of kill pressure. He has high damage, and the build favors him right now. So definitely look to pick him up. Shiva is also another very strong pick right now. High damage, build favors him, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to repeat myself. Shiva is really strong right now. Artemis as well is, while less strong than the other two, is still very, very good. Another hunter that's seen a bit more of a rise as well, or excuse me, a maintenance of their spot, is Chiron. Chiron's ridiculous. You build full ability based and you just explode people from halfway across the fight, halfway across the lane. He's incredibly safe, has very high damage and consistent damage, and he has the CC immunity in both his ultimate and the cleanse. Chiron is very strong, and if you're an ADC player who isn't playing him, you're making a mistake right now. You should definitely be picking him up. Uller kind of fell off a little bit. With the nerf to the damage of his 1, he's a lot less kill-oriented than he was before, like instantly killing you, but once he gets his items, he's still going to explode you. He's Uller. That's what he does. He takes a little bit longer to ramp up, but he still explodes you. Supports. Moving to the Mage tab. With the introduction of Bauble and Lono's Mask, Nox is fucking ridiculous. There's no other way to put it. Having 60% CDR on Nox, a character who relies on lockdown with two of her abilities, is insane. Having that silence field always up. She is ridiculously annoying, insufferably tanky, and she actually still does okay damage. This character is super annoying, and if you're decent with her, you definitely want to abuse her in support. Building Lono's Mask and getting the Bauble at the end, getting a bunch of CDR. Iset is also a very powerful support pick right now, with Lono's Mask. Less so with Bauble, but with Lono's Mask, she's very, very strong. She stays alive for a very, very long time, and it's Iset. I've said this before in the previous meta updates. She has good peel, good protection. She has good damage and pressure early game, and circle of protection is insane. This character does very well in the support role right now. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Baron. While Baron isn't at the same level as Iset or Nox, I do think he's pretty decent. Especially in ranked where you can kind of just run around in circles and throw things at people. Baron is very good at doing that. He has good damage in the early game, and late game he's got good healing despite his Lono's debuff, and he's super, super tanky. Now to the actual Guardian tab. Cabrakin is still seeing a lot of play. I personally really agree with that because he is super strong. He gets up in the faces of the squishy mages and hunters and he locks them down. He's got really consistent CC, and with the DR changes, his 1 not being DRable is really, really powerful. You could 2 them and then 1 them and then tremors them and they're stuck. All right. They're locked down for a very long time. If you space your CC correctly, Cabrakin can be a very powerful force. I will mention that, as per usual, Yamoja and Ares are both up here because if you're good at the characters, you can make them insane and just dominate in ranked. Ares especially, if he gets the lead, he can just run away with it completely and hard carry games. Yamoja is very, very similar. Outside of that, though, Atlas and Khepri are both very strong pickups. Khepri is just the I don't die button you throw down, but in lower MMRs, I would kind of avoid Khepri because people are stupid and kill themselves. Atlas is still very, very strong right now, too, because of his consistency, his high damage, and his ultimate is absurd. The character can run games. I've seen it done even at the highest level. This character can run games. For mid lane, going back to the Hunter tab, because Chiron. Chiron's really strong. Same reasons he's strong in ADC. You build full ability based, you get pressure. Well, not in ADC, but in mid, you get pressure because you're a hunter, and do higher base numbers, and you can explode people late game. You have the cleanse, early access to that double CC, or triple CC immunity, technically. Makes you super safe, and you do a lot of damage. Late game, you're Chiron, and you shoot people from halfway across the fight where they can't touch you, and you kill them. Amuzenkov, for a very similar reason, his high damage and his high pressure is very good in mid lane as well. Stinger is a ridiculous ability. Being able to pick it up, have a reduced cooldown, and the amount of percentage, I believe it's 20% currently, 20% pen. Yeah, protection reduction, just straight reduction, excuse me. 20% protection reduction is crazy. This character is really, really good and super high pressure. You can get a lot of early solo kills and just overall kind of run the map. Back to the mages. You know, I look at this tab and I think, man, these characters aren't that great. That's not true, but a lot of these characters are a bit limited in what they can do. Yu Huang is without a doubt the strongest mage in the game right now. The itemization heavily favors him. His damage numbers are ridiculous. His ultimate is incredibly powerful, and he's decently safe. His first few levels are really strong, then his mid game is kind of weak, but his late game is very, very good. This character does insane numbers. Now, I'm going to the Guardian tab because it's Cabrakin again. Cabrakin mid can run ranked games. You're building a full damage ranked as mask build with a bunch of lifesteal, and you're really tanky by virtue of how much you're healing. And he can kind of run games. You've seen it in the Pro League with Shinto, and you can see it in high-level ranked games as well. Benny Q runs it. A lot of people have been running it in high-level ranked games, and it just kind of runs games because he can clear the wave very quickly, walk over to a lane and just basically be a second jungler and just kill the soul laner or the mid lane or the ADC. It's easier to kill the soul laner, surprisingly, because they're more susceptible to ganks because of the way they think and play the game. What was I gonna say next? But back to the mage tab. Baba Yaga, Kukulkan are both decent mages. Kukulkan because he's safe and he can kind of just throw abilities on top of himself and run around in circles. Baba Yaga because she has incredibly high damage and really good late game scaling. I'm trying to think who else I would want to mention here, but the rest of them are kind of just mediocre. Morgan Le Fay is kind of a safety mage. She has multiple get off me buttons as well as a CC mean ultimate. The Morgan is a very high pressure pick, like late game, and you can explode people. And being able to transform into another character is very, very strong. Other than that, though, I'm going to move on to jungles. I thought I would be clicking on this tab to talk about how Osiris is absolutely garbage. I was wrong. Osiris's nerf was incredibly heavy. This damage reduction at max rank is the same he would get at level 2 before this nerf. I thought this would straight up kill the character in jungle, but he's still doing decently well. He's not as oppressive as he was before late game. However, he now has the ability to make mistakes in ranked. This character is still very, very strong and honestly can still run games very well. But he keeps it a bit more balanced. Erlang Shen, however, has almost completely fallen off. The character can still do things that are very similar to what he once did. However, If I'm going 7.5% to 5% is a very big hit on his dog's passive. He is doing significantly less damage and needs to build either more damage or health, or excuse me, more damage to mitigate that. And that can kind of leave him vulnerable to just straight up dying. As always, Gilgamesh in his current state is always going to be a decent jungler. I say decent. He's not cream of the crop. Especially not anymore, but he definitely could still run games. You can build literally whatever the hell you want on this character and do things because dropkick him wins. Character's pretty decent. Just, there are better picks. Something I would be remiss if I did not mention is Sylvanas. Sylvanas jungle was something that was prominent like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, because it actually does quite a bit. You build mannequins and you just build full damage and explode people. His damage is non-aegisable, and by that I mean his damage is all ticks. So aegising it is very difficult because you're only aegising maybe 2 ticks. Carries have adopted to buying Shell in order to counter this, to maintain their health pool. But most carries have been switching to Shell anyway, so it has fallen off a bit. However, you could still abuse it in lower ranks. Building full damage Sylvanas and just using your pressure to just kill people. It was proved to be very good. Now we can go to the Assassin tab and talk about Lance. God's nuts. Plain and simple. Character does a ridiculous amount of damage. His safety is nuts. He can't be taken off a horse by literally anything other than stuns. You can't Poseidon cripple him. You can't Hunbot sphere him off of it. He's essentially Jormungandr, but doesn't get affected by the CCs that he's hit by. Anything that would put Jormungandr in his passive is likely to knock him off the horse. But he also... it also just doesn't always work like that. Regardless, he plays 2 roles. He plays them very well. He could probably play 3 if he really wanted to, but a lot of people haven't been really playing him mid. He plays jungle and solo, both of which he plays incredibly well. Some players have adopted, because his ultimate is very powerful, they've picked up, support players have picked up Ymir to straight up just put a wall in his face. Same thing you would do with Guan Yu and you would do with Zhang Kui. Put a wall in front of him and he can't walk. That is definitely something you could do to counter him, but he's very strong. I would definitely look to pick him up if you're a jungle player or a solo player, but talking about junglers right now. Rat and Daji are both very powerful picks right now because Rat can kind of run the map and Daji forces you to play a specific way. Soul laners have to buy beads or they're going to die. Everybody's going to have to buy beads or they're likely to die. They're liable to die. And it just is that way. Daji does insane damage. She's really good 1v1 in the late game, though she does lose to some characters. She overall just strong. Rat, you buy the stun acorn, and you can run the map. You can't miss your one skill, your one ability that requires some skill to hit, and you just kill people with your high amount of damage. Nemesis, still very strong. Even after their golden blade changes, the stone cutting changes, she is still very, very strong. She shreds protections and just can run the map with her ability to, 1, travel quickly, and 2, just kill tanks. She shreds them. And carries, too. She absolutely shreds them. To talk about solo laners, Rat is a pretty decent pick right now. I wouldn't call him the cream of the crop, but he's a pretty decent pick, and I'm already on the Assassin tab. You would build the, what's it called, Eggcorn? You build a thick bark Eggcorn, you build Soul Eater, and you just build full tank, and he does very, very well. He's very tanky, he's very hard to deal with, and he has really good rotations. As I said before, Lancelot is pretty decent. You build him with a more hybrid build, pretty much full tank with a Soul Eater, and you do a lot of damage, and you live forever. It's really annoying. This character is very annoying. Warriors. There was a stark change this weekend than there was the week before. A lot of people have been experimenting with Bauble, but right now it seems as if, because of the rise of certain items, King Arthur appears to be making a bit of a return. King Arthur is always going to be the same. When his items are good, he's good. Glad Shield's good. And currently, Mail of Renewal is actually pretty good. Guardians are pretty decent right now. And a lot of junglers are physical. A problem that solo laners had before was, especially warriors, is that they didn't have a good option to go first to mitigate both sides. Mail of Renewal now is an actual viable option to pick up. which allows you to now get both 30 physical and magical defense, plus the healing's really nice. This would be substituted in for something like Sovereignty. When it's 2 physicals, you would put Sovereignty, but when it's a physical and a magical, you do Mail of Renewal. You pretty much just slam it in where Sovereignty would be, get your Glad Shield, get your other items. And it does well. When King Arthur's good, Cuchullin's typically good. For the same reasons. High damage, high pressure, blah, blah, blah. Good CC late game. Hard to kill in team fights. Items good, unga bunga. That's really it. Now, it's hard to say, because we haven't really seen Bauble in pro play. I'm not sure if it's still banned. We haven't seen Bauble in pro play, but a lot of characters can get away with running Bauble and doing very well with it. The first and most prominent of which, I would definitely say, is Odin. Odin with 60% CDR is stupid. His shield is almost always up. While his laning phase is kinda ass, his shield is always up in the late game, and he's Odin. He's got Cage, he's gonna do what he's gonna do. I'm gonna stand in front of your carry and make their life insufferable for the entire time that I'm alive. And that's what he does, and he's doing it even better now with Bauble, because he really didn't care about the damage before. He still threatens you because his cooldowns are up so often. Another pretty good Bauble user, though he doesn't require it, is Shiva. Shiva uses Bauble very well because of his consistent CC and high damage output. Having a knock-up, the thing is, if you knock them up with your 1, then knock them up with your 2, you use temporal beads, you can knock them up with your 1 again, and then with your 2 again. Because CDs are very, very short. But you do lose a lot of that damage that you have, and your healing is essentially worthless in your ultimate. But it's still pretty good. You can run him with or without Bauble, and he's still very, very good right now, I think. Other than that, go to the Guardians tab. Cabrakin's doing the same thing he was doing in mid and solo. Building full damage and just being insufferable to deal with. Especially in solo lane, because anti-heal options in solo are kinda buns. If you're a Guardian, going Divine Ruin means you sacrifice a lot of your tankiness, especially early on. As a warrior, if you go Brawlers, you're doing the same thing. Contagion kind of sucks, and Pestilence feels bad to go because you want to go one of the items in the Kusari tree. You know, Shoguns, Onis, Genjis. Pestilence is okay, and I would say it's probably your best option. Maybe Contagion competes, but because crit's out of the meta, that's the only reason Contagion can even hold a candle to Pestilence in this case. Because if crit was in the meta, you'd still be going Spectral. Because crit's really not that much in the meta anymore, it's still there, but it's not as prominent. You're not required to build Spectral, which means you have space in the build for it. Before, you didn't have space in the build. Your anti-heal options are limited, and Cabrakin can abuse that very, very well. Artio, for a similar reason, except for she's not building full damage, she's just insufferable, as per usual. Artio's annoying as hell, has high sustain, high damage, very tanky late game. Cripple Field is annoying, blah, blah, blah. You get my point. You guys know at this point why Artio's good. I've explained it enough times. She's good, and Conduit Gem is very good on her. Another pick that I would keep an eye on, in ranked. I've been running Jing Chen recently, and he feels really, really good. I wouldn't say he's the best, but he feels very strong. He survives most laning phases and without much of a hitch. He has decent contest on blue once his roars back up, so you have the fear of a Guardian getting his blues invaded and whatnot. But he does pretty good damage, especially with the Warlocks build. He does pretty good damage, and late game, he's really annoying to Hunters. So yeah. And I believe that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.